Happy Thursday from sunny Orlando, Florida. My name is Antoine Seawright. I am so grateful and thankful to join you again for another one of our Christian Recorder Dialogue series. We've been blessed all week long to have some outstanding guests with some very consequential conversations, in my humble opinion, and I certainly appreciate all the feedback. As always, wherever you may be in the world, please let us know your district, who your bishop may be, your church, and your pastor. It's always good to see. We have been here all week for a dynamic week at the 51st quadrennial session here in Orlando, Florida, and such wonderful hospitality, such wonderful people. And this morning, I'm so proud to have a wonderful guest. When I came to Orlando, Florida, the word was that there are certain things you absolutely have to do. One, you have to thank God for being there. Two, you must talk to the mayor. We did that. You must speak with the next U.S. Senator, who's a good AMEC sister, Val Demings. And after you do those things, you make sure you get your prayers situated with the pastor of St. Mark AME Church, who I hope and pray will be the next congressman from the 10th district when the seat is vacated by Congresswoman Val Demings, and that is none other than my good friend, Pastor Terence. Great Pastor, so good to see you, my man.
It's an honor and privilege and pleasure to be here. You're looking well as always. I'm grateful for the opportunity to be a part of this.
Pastor, I'm gonna go ahead and leak this thing out. I can't wait to worship with you on Sunday morning, because I heard that the road to heaven runs through South Carolina, but there's a filling station in Florida, St. Mark AME Church.
It's going to be outstanding. We're looking forward to the son of the church, who now happens to be and was one time pastor, who is now the bishop of the 7th Episcopal District. He's going to come back home. He's going to be with us at 7:30 in the morning. He's going to be preaching. I'm looking forward to all the wonderful people who I came to know in South Carolina being with us. And plus, we're serving breakfast now. Hopefully, y'all are not going to get mad at me. We got fish, we got grits, we got shrimp, we got cheese, we got a little bacon on the side. So hopefully all that's going to fall in line. Hopefully help everybody.
Well, Pastor, the good news is we're going to be in your house, so I'm going to ask for grace and mercy in advance for the gluttony I may commit Sunday morning. But you know, Bishop Green is my home bishop in the 7th Episcopal District, and I so value his friendship and his mentorship to me, and certainly shout out to my uncle in the 9th Episcopal District, Bishop Seawright. Pastor, for those who may not know you, I know you as the pastor of St. Mark, grew up in Georgia, an alpha man, HBCU graduate, Morris College, was called to the ministry at a young age, I think at the age of 12. At 16, you was already shaped up and shipped out. You've been doing your thing. Your church has been noted to be one of the most influential churches in the country, and certainly probably perhaps the most influential in the state of Florida. That's a good flirtation about you. I said earlier that you will be running for the 10th Congressional District seat in Florida come next year in the midterms. But what else didn't I say about the Pastor Terence Gray?
Well, I think that you forgot something I think that's very, very essential. I'm a granddad.
Oh,
Can you imagine? I have lived long enough to celebrate the fact that I have 2 wonderful grandchildren, which also means I have 3 phenomenal children. I'm blessed to be the father of a daughter who's now living inside of us. Well, I think it's New Orleans. It's actually called Harvey, the exact area. Her husband is a pastor. Although in the Baptist church, they still say they know the Lord, for which we thank and praise God for. And he was born in January. He was born in January 24th, as a matter of fact, with some serious initial health concerns. But man, the Lord has blessed him, and he's doing extremely well. And to imagine he's going to be 6 months in July, it's phenomenal. I also have another grandbaby, Tori, who will be 4 this year. So I'm in the grandparent stage, but my children, not only Jocelyn, who's married, my son Terence, who's here, and Tremaine, who now lives in New York. I don't know whether you know it or not, he did this wonderful small movie called Kings of Glory. Kindred Kings is what it was. And it was rated with I think the Guild, the Writers Guild. He got the Southeastern, I think, one of the awards with them. They acknowledged what he had done in a successful way. I'm proud of that boy, and proud of all of my children, looking forward to what they're going to become. So if you want to know something else about me, I love my children. And there ain't nothing I think that I would not do for my children.
The Lord is good, and his mercy endures forever.
Yes, sir.
Pastor, tell us about that influential filling station in Florida known as St. Mark AME Church.
Trust me, I have been blessed and privileged to serve St. Mark now, if the Lord gives me life, in November 17 years. And during that time, I had the opportunity, as I've always stated, to stand on the shoulders of phenomenal people, whether it has been the legacy of leadership, being from George Champion to Kennan to Bishop Green. I've had an opportunity to recognize the history of the church and took the time to really get involved with trying to merge them to become who they said they wanted to be. And they said they wanted to be a church that was building families for Christ. And so consequentially in the process, we have worked diligently to empower and strengthen people, whether through prayer calls, whether through daily manna, whether it became at one time 3 worship services on a Sunday, to create an East Side location, to move the financial budget from an operational amount of 1.8 to now 3.9, and we were knocking on the door of 4 million before we ran into COVID. I've watched St. Mark grow in that aspect, but I've also watched St. Mark help to grow people. When I arrived at St. Mark, there was only one elected official who was inside of the church. That elected official happened to have been Cat Gordon, who served on the school board. But subsequently, since that time, I watched 6 other people find themselves evolving and becoming elected, whether it was Valdez Butler Dimmons, who now serves as Congresswoman in the 10th, whether it's Jared Dimmons, who was initially elected sheriff, who went on to become now county mayor, whether it's Camille Brown, who now serves as our state representative, whether it's been Tiffany Moore Russell, who came to join the church, whether it was Alicia Latimer, who rose to become a judge, or whether it was Regina Hill, who also came to become a part of the church. Some people migrated in and some people grew themselves in, and I've watched the growth of that from influence, from watching how the church has moved. And we try not to wear it as a badge of honor, we wear it as a badge of service. Because we recognize what we're trying to do is what the hymn writer said, to serve the present age, my calling to fulfill. And so we sense, we see, we recognize that God is pulling us and directing us into new areas in an attempt to help people. That's the ultimate goal.
Pastor, you touched on something that's a good segue to where I actually wanted to go. What role does the church play in being engaged and involved in the community? Because it seems as if your church could be a model for other churches, both small and big, when you talk about being engaged and involved. Forget about politics for a second, but just being involved in the community and things going on around where the church infrastructure is.
Strange enough, when I was in seminary, which is not that long ago, although I can truthfully say that my hair was black then, but I don't have any.
You downsize. When you get older, you downsize, Pastor.
I have truthfully downsize. But trust me, it was, I remember in my seminary class that there was a discussion called needs assessment. They really, a lot of churches start trying to perform services without understanding what is the need of the community. And so what God has allowed us to do is to take the time to hear the people and to be able to gather the necessary information regarding our community, and then turn around and create the kind of ministries and services that they say they need. Now, no one, and there's some situation I'm gonna say to you, Antoine, that nobody has to tell me. Nobody had to tell me to have a COVID test. Nobody had to tell me to make sure the St. Mark will be a place where people get COVID shots. Nobody had to tell me that. Situations and the culture can dictate, but you gotta have your eyes open. Nobody has to tell me that we need to try to make sure we are a station where people can get food. You don't have to tell me that that's something that is of necessity. So you hear me saying to you that one has to have their eyes open, but also must hear the people. I can't hear the people.
So you gotta do both. You gotta see and hear.
Correct.
That's strong, Pastor.
Yes, sir.
Pastor, let's talk about the AMEC Church.
Okay, let's talk about it.
You know, we have been blessed to have a bond that has always been in the forefront leading, whether it's on issues, whether it's when it comes to people, or whether it's on policy. Talk about the role you see the AME Church playing as we move into this new era that my generation will face.
Well, my hope is that you're electing some persons in leadership who have the heart and the mission of what Richard Allen has created and what our forefathers have generated. They're gonna have to hear. But also, I would also say to you, my church is gonna have to evolve. Which is something that I think that you have to have persons in leadership, in policy making, and policy development who are open-minded and who can then hear God speak to us from this motto, how do I love people? You know, love ought to be a general, need to be a major statement.
Love has to be the nerve center.
It has to be, and without that, when you start loving, you can stop judging. So I think that my church has to evolve in that context and be open as we mature and grow. But you got to also have persons that you put in position who already have that sense.
You've decided to take your level of service to a different level in a different way. You've announced that you are planning to run for the 10th congressional district when Val Demings, now that Val Demings has decided to run for the U.S. Senate. Why now? Why you?
Well, why now is because according to the scripture, I mean, the Lord has prepared me for such a time as this.
Be ye also ready.
Yeah, I mean, I'm telling you, and I think I am. And really be honest with you, when you look at the lay of the land of the people who are running for office, all of which I love and respect, I just recognize, Terence, God is telling you you can do a better job. And I tried my best not to. I tried to avoid it, and I couldn't rest. You know, like that pulling and tugging. It was only when I came to a place where I said, yes, I will do this, that there got to be a calmness, a peace in my spirit, and a charge within my soul. I started evaluating all the reasons why I should not, my family and all that I've done in my life. Started going down my own skeleton closet and said, I don't need to do this, I don't need to do that. And God reminded me that no, I've called you, I've prepared you for this, and this is a level of service. And it's needed because our church needs to recognize the following. Too many people in certain parties, especially the Republican Party, wish to imply that the people in the Democratic Party are not saved. Have you ever listened to that foolishness?
They think they're GOP, God's only party.
Yeah, I would say that. I like that. I like that. But have you recognized that when I've heard that consistently, the majority, the great percentage of us, of color, are Democrats. And I'm going saying,
And we're Christians.
yes,
We believe
it.
this is our faith.
You got it.
The same God that they think they serve is the one we've been serving for a long time.
Yeah, you got it. And so I'm sort of like, what are they doing?
Yeah.
And then when I look at the whole conversation from my particular area of parenting, I think that the word minority is out the window. I think we have to come back and start looking at another word that really begins talking about how do you divide the pie. And parent is my word.
Equity and equality.
I'll let you use yours and I'm down with you. But my other concern is, you realize I struggle when I start hearing people say how people of our quote unquote party are not saved, and they base it on two things. They base it on the rights of people making a choice to basically whether or not you have pro-life, pro-choice. We find most of us leaning on the pro-choice piece, and the whole issue regarding how we deal with people who have the alternative lifestyle. And my stance is, how can the church begin having that dialogue? The church, in my opinion, needs to learn how to say to the people on the other side, hey, you want pro-life at birth, but you don't want pro-life through life, because you're not trying to create ways in order to enhance it. You got to find a way to say, how are you ready to be a parent? And you plan parenthood. When it comes down to personal sexuality, it is my job to love a person, not trying to be their judge or their jury, but to allow them to grow into the knowledge and understanding of God without trying to put them down. It's not my role, it's not my time. My job is to love you and to let the Lord do the judging at the Lord's time. So some kind of way, those kind of messages got to go forth from the church in order to speak to them.
That's the number of issues in the catalog that find themselves to be priorities. Give me one for the Father, one for the Son, one for the Holy Spirit. Give me your top three issues.
Parenting is guaranteed one, and I want to come back and spend a lot of quality time dealing with the whole issue of education, and education trying to enhance and strengthen what might be resources for the African American schools all the more, but for schools entirely. I think that, do you know that inside of Florida, there's a Florida prepaid program that somebody can start paying early in to that.
For college. Yeah.
And by the time they get ready to go to college, they're able to go. The struggle that I have is that kind of knowledge, even for people within my community, is not
It's not there.
Or we're too afraid of it.
It's called the 521 program in South Carolina.
Really?
Yeah, we have it too. And it's actually a tax shelter.
It is 521.
It's a tax shelter for a lot of people. Now they've made it in certain states where the money can be used for college education or housing or car or whatever it is. And actually, you don't have to do it for a child. You can start putting money away for you in different states, different strokes, different folks.
Yeah, but ultimately to be engaged in trying to enhance that area for long-term planning for our children. And the other one that I really am strongly advocating happens to be situational guns. I think that we have to be serious about what we may call gun control. I think it's people control. I think that we got the wrong people handling guns. I think we got to firm up how we do policing and persons who will find themselves being in those roles. How do we respond to them? How do we help them? I talked to Chief Rowland, who is our chief, as well as our sheriff. And here's been my conversation. You're approaching this from a stance where you're trying to create policy. When a person puts a gun in their hand, that's a hard and ethic issue. And I've appealed to them to read the book White Too Long. Have you read the book?
I've heard about it, but
It's
I've not
great.
read
You
it.
need to read the book White Too Long, which addresses the whole stigmatization of how the Southern Baptist Church and how quote unquote the evangelical church has spent more time perpetuating racism that over time that is now in the hearts of people, that people do not see people of other ethnic groups as human or as a person to therefore respect. So those kind of issues I'm trying to get on.
Let's talk for a minute about young people.
All right, let's talk about
That word young is subjective versus objective. I like to think I'm still young at 36.
I'm young at 55.
From everybody at home, don't judge this 36-year-old young person, or this seasoned young person. But Pastor, there's so many issues that I think have wrapped their arms and squeezed my generation. And unfortunately, squeezing is starting to take the breath out of the next generation. And that has had impact on the church as well. Tie those things two together, the fact that issues young people deal with, because when you're elected, you have to deal with some of these issues. But also you will join a unique group of people, being a pastor and an elected official, and those two things have to come together where you have to care for them in two different ways.
Well, I'll go right back to something that I stated earlier, hearing. My beloved son, Tremaine, came and sat down and we had a whole heart-to-heart conversation about life. And when he shared his life plan and where he was, that which he got up from was knowing this: his daddy loves him, his daddy accepts him, and his daddy is there for him, and his daddy is going to always be his daddy. No matter where you go, what you do, how you become, how you evolve, how you shape, you have a father who loves you. Some kind of way, that kind of modeling has to be done within our church and for our community. I think the model what it is you say you are, because we don't have examples, because many of us have never been down certain paths. So you have to learn how to become by observing. I mean, I'm doing a series right now at St. Mark on grace. And it's taken out of Philippians. It's what's so amazing about grace. And what Philippians has argued is the issue with most of us is not so much that we don't have the head knowledge of grace, we just don't know how to do it because we don't have a full grasp of the modeling. So a lot of what I hope I'm able to do in relation to the church as well as young people is to model a behavior that my generation can observe and your generation ain't that far from me can pick up on, that we can pass on to the next generation.
What issues do you think, what are some of the biggest challenges and hurdles you think the 21st century church face from where you sit?
From where I sit right now, one for the AMEC church or church in general?
The church in general.
Church in general.
Because when we get to heaven, they won't break us up in categories, AME and Baptist.
The church at the end of the day is going to have to deal with the issue regarding difference of sexuality, human sexuality. Our church has had a chance to have a discussion on it recently, and the denomination, as you well know, and we had our vote. But I think our church is going to have to continue to be open to the conversation. I think that's a real reality. Number two, our church, or the church in general, has to begin planting itself in new places, which means we are not doing that. We're still trying to operate in existing houses when we've got to be open to therefore spread the house. I think even more so, we're gonna have to take the time to see that it's just not in the house, but it's in the imagery and the conversation you have with the media world platform, which means be content and learn how to be able to have a worship service from wherever you are that speaks to the world. So we've got to get involved in technology. The church has to come back and deal with what I call accountability. And the church is gonna have to begin spending a lot of time helping the constituents that are in our pews learn the value of managing MONEY, because we've got too much generational, I would say, depravity. And I mean, you remember Bishop John Rosado? My spiritual
My
father.
uncle's mentor.
Oh, how much do I love Bishop John Rosado? I miss him greatly. He said, Terence, we got to fall out of love with poverty. And I'm trying to get
You were close.
I tried. And that's powerful. We've got, and all of that is a part of what the church has to do. While I want you to get prepared to go to meet the Lord, I got to prepare you to exist and function within the economy of where you are. Another good case in point that the church has to do. The church has to begin teaching the people who make up those pews to not only give their tithes, their offering to the church, but I've got to help you to therefore support the institutions that made you. Do you realize that according to all statistics, that probably less than 13% of all persons who graduate from the historically black college give back? What does that say? That says that some kind of way, the issue is not that we're not graduating great people and they're not going forward, but we have not trained them to be able to support the institutions that they graduate.
Tell them about conditioning.
And so the church has to do that. And I think it's a part of the church's role to do all of that at the same time going forward.
Let's talk about something that's near and dear to my heart.
Okay, talk to me.
And I started raising the alarm bells after the 2016 election.
Okay.
It didn't start happening in 2016. That's when I started raising alarm bells. And after the 2016 election, 13% of black men voted for Donald Trump. In the 2020 election, that number went from somewhere between 20 to 23%. We see this trend happening. At the same time, we are 3 or 4 times more likely to be mishandled or killed at the hands of law enforcement. Sentencing 3 to 4 times receive higher. We know the challenges with wages, every other issue, healthcare, and all of that. Talk about this crisis with what I believe to be the most consequential constituency in the country, black men, that we face.
Some kind of way, black men who have always found themselves being overlooked and underserved
And unheard.
Feel as if they're trying their best to branch out somewhere. The appeal, though, strangely enough, I guess, for the former president was the fact that he was trying to imply he would do something different, right? He was doing something radically different. And anytime somebody can radically do something different, there are times we'll just run behind it. How do we come back to hear the black men? Again, hear them, but then not only hear them, respond. That's why I'm going back to the word parenting. You got a number of persons inside of Orlando who are African American, who have desires to therefore do businesses, but they do not have the kind of support in order for that to take place. You remember Maynard Jackson? You heard the name?
Yeah.
Man, I grew up while sitting in my grandmama's house. She stayed at 875 McDaniel Street, and I watched Maynard Jackson ride up and down in a convertible limo at that
For the
time,
people.
talking about he was fitting to help all of us. I remember that day, and I loved his administration. And his administration, in my opinion, was not minority based; it was parity based. So let's see if we have persons who are trying to enhance, not push out. You know, there are times in which the party has behaved as if that it's better for a woman to have a house without a man and be better supported than a man.
Spoke about that with Val Demings.
So for me, the more I start empowering that man to be in his own house, to be with his children, that allows that brother to therefore feel not only a sense of worth and of value, but also allows that person to see that the party appreciates the value.
You need to go raise money and campaign, and so I'm gonna not get in your way, but let me ask you this. If you had to have a message for the people in the 10th Congressional District, and you had to have a message to the people of the Living Church, what would those two messages be separately?
Okay, why don't I start with 10th District? I think they may even overlap. I desire to have a chance to show them that they have a person who is for the people, with the people, and a part of the people. I made a commitment to say that I will not plan for a month to pass, but I will not sit on a Zoom call, and no matter who's on that Zoom call from the 10th District, they can talk to their congressman. Some kind of way we've got to begin allowing the relationship from Congress to therefore move back.
We call that high touch, not high tech.
Oh,
Where I'm
yeah,
from.
I like that. I like that. Then even more so, I desire to have better communication, not only with the people who are at the state level at Tallahassee, but in the county and the cities that make up the district of which I'm in, which means I'm talking to the leadership. What's going on? How can I serve you? Again, that need assessment, the very things I learned is in there, going right back to do that. I feel as if the more that's done and being the person that can try to do that to shape the policies that are there, it creates the kind of influence and the commitment to show the unification of the district and empowerment to move it forward. And I'm gonna be that person that's gonna work hard. I don't need a job. I got that. I'm trying to serve. I don't need a position. I already got that. I'm trying to be a person who's able to be supportive of the people. Now, but let's bring that back to our denomination. Take all of what I just said, you can put it right back in those. I really believe that our church is at the cutting edge where we have to learn that verse that says, to serve this present age, my calling to fulfill. If the church spends more time hearing the people that arrive, spending time listening, and if the church took the time to empower people to live out their God-given call for their lives. And number two, stop sending persons fresh out of seminary to old established churches, but put them in new places
To plant new seeds.
plant new initiatives, and allow them to grow and watch it grow. And if the Lord has really called and got a calling on their lives, then that will happen. Everybody can't pastor grandma. And that's a fact. God knows I was blessed to grow up in the church. My father was a pastor. And so I've been around it. So me going into a church where I had pastor my grandma, I ain't have no problem being their child. I've been their child all my life. Even now, man, you know, when I first got St. Mark, I had to be somebody's child, but it wasn't no problem. I could be that child because I had been it all of my days. So some kind of way that has to be a part of what we do. We can help people to serve in that context would be well.
Pastor, it's my honor to have you. I'm certainly gonna send you a donation. I'm looking forward to Sunday. Lord, please go ahead and forgive us in advance for the gluttony we will commit. We're gonna chat with a dear friend, Supervisor Richardson, very, very shortly, but I'm so happy to have the next congressman and one of the most dynamic pastors Florida's ever seen, my friend Terence.
That's my supervisor.